that analysis paralysis sometimes, it makes you fearful, it makes you scared, and it kind of makes you a wimp.
I don't feel like it. Like, so?
There you go.
You don't feel like, so what? Yeah. You shouldn't feel like it.
Yeah. I mean,
right? Actually, the more you don't feel like it, the more we accomplish, because that means you're changing yourself. That's why the Prophet ﷺ, in a famous hadith, he said, حُفَّتِ الْجَنَّةُ بِالْمَكَارِهِ وَحُفَّتِ النَّارُ بِالشَّهَوَاتِ.
Beautiful.
Right? Jannah surrounded with hardship.
We were there at 6 a.m. We were running, we were working out, and our coaches would always say, "Who are you when no one's looking?"
For a new Muslim, right? I mean, when they've memorized how to recite the letters, I'm like, you realize it's a huge accomplishment. If your non-Muslim family hears you reciting another language, we don't realize that, but that's like, that takes a level of discipline.
It's nice when men sit down and kick it the men way.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I want to do that. No, we're go-getters.
Yeah.
Right.
We get up, we want to do something, we just do it, and it's beautiful.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. How's everyone doing? I'm Abdullah Oduro, and welcome to the Iman Cave, where we discuss issues of male excellence while being grounded in faith. Discipline. What is it? Why does it matter, especially in the life of a man? Many people have become Muslim because they see their disciplined mentor, friend, coworker. There must be something about it that helps to make the Muslim man a great man and an influential person. We're going to talk about that today, mashallah, with our co-host, Morad Awad. Mashallah, tabarakallah. Morad Awad is the entrepreneur of the year, mashallah, tabarakallah, and he has dealt with the youth for many, many years. So particularly talking about masculinity is mashallah, is his pastime. Alhamdulillah. How you doing, man?
Alhamdulillah, Shaykh. Jazakumullah khair for allowing me to be here. It's really an honor to be a guest in this and a co-host in this show, inshallah.
No, alhamdulillah. And he also on the side, does a little MMA for roughly about 15 years, but that's nothing. Alhamdulillah. And speaking of that, we have, mashallah, our guest, my brother Ariel Del Fierro. Alhamdulillah, I hope I pronounced it correctly, mashallah, tabarakallah. Ariel is a real estate agent, and also, I'm going to say it, he's a triathlete, mashallah, tabarakallah. He's a running coach, amongst other things in the community. As you can see, both of these brothers have an understanding of physicality. They have an understanding of what it takes to be a person of discipline because they went through processes mentally to get to a certain place. It reminds me of the hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and when the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "Ahabbul a'mali ilallah adwamuha wa inqal." The most beloved actions to Allah are those that are consistent, even if they were a little bit. So what does discipline mean to you? What does discipline mean to you, Murad?
To me, discipline is what a man should, it's the aura of a man. When somebody looks at a man, they should see discipline, right? It's the ability to achieve and accomplish through consistency. That's my definition, right? I'm not trying to give you a Webster dictionary type of definition, but it's, but one thing I always remember about discipline, I would like for it to be, there's a lot of ayat and a hadith, but I read this book when I was in college called The Art of War by, Sun Tzu. It's a very, famous book. Everybody knows it. And he said to achieve discipline, right, you need clear instructions, right, good incentive, and a known punishment.
Known punishment?
Yeah, for not being, for not following the instructions, right? And when I read the Quran, that's what you see. You see clear instructions, what Allah wants from a believer, right? Yeah. Clear instruction, and then good incentive, Jannah. Nice. And then a punishment, right? SubhanAllah, it's it's there. And I'm like, it's as if he read, but by the way, this was written thousands of years ago. Yeah, long time ago, but we see this, right? This is what I think of.
That's interesting. You said the clear punishment and the consistency, and I have a definition for it too. It says discipline is consistent acts of control to reach a desired goal. Right?
That's nice. It rhymes too.
Yeah, it rhymes too. Now, the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, he says, he asked a question, if there was a river in the front of your house and you were to bathe in it 5 times a day, would there be any dirt on you? And obviously, the companion said no. And he said, this is like the prayer. It wipes away the sins from the prayer that was before it. So Ariel, being someone, when did you convert to Islam? Or revert to Islam?
2012.
2012.
Yeah.
How was the prayer for you when you first started? Because as the Prophet said, it's 5 times a day. And to be, I'm not gonna lie. When I first heard about Islam, everything was cool. But then when he said, but you got to pray 5 times a day, I said, man, that's like every single day.
5 times.
And this was around the time when, phones were out. So it's like, do I get rollover salat? Like, if I don't make the 5 today, can I get, do 6 tomorrow? It's like, nah, man. You gotta, it's 5 times a day. So, and then when I stopped and thought about it, it's better for me. You know what I'm saying? But it was a process. How was it for you?
Same. I mean, I'll be honest, I struggled for years to make those 5 prayers.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember very early on, sometimes not praying all day. And at the end of the day, I'm like, oh, I should pray all 5 right now. And I would.
Yeah.
But it was a struggle. It was something that I thought was the hardest thing possible.
Right.
But really, it wasn't until I dug into the religion and learned the beauty of it, and then learned, it's something that my Lord wants me to do. And I need to dedicate those 5 moments of my day so that in turn I will get a reward from my Lord for pleasing my Lord. So it's one of those things I saw. It took me a while, but I saw that clear clear path that was just opening up for me. If I was disciplined enough to make those 5 prayers, I knew that God was going to reward me that day. It was kind of my logic, right? And just reward me in my life if I consistently kept doing those things. So I mean, it's being a new Muslim for sure. I don't think anyone that hasn't converted realizes that is a hard thing to grasp and understand that you got to do this. But then eventually, you actually said something to me really profound one time. You just said, just keep doing it. This is a new Muslim thing that we did years ago. Even if you're not, I remember asking the question I don't really feel this prayer sometimes, and you just said, keep doing it. Do it every day, do it 5 times a day, keep doing it. And what that did for me is I fell in love with the prayer at some point.
MashaAllah.
But it took years for me to fall in love with that prayer.
Yeah, man. And that's it's good you said that, because that's so human. We as men sometimes, especially when we're younger, getting up for Fajr or waking up or having to get your first job, you got to really look at the reward, so the reward from Allah. And that's what we were talking about the last episode of purpose, that our purpose is transcendent. It's something that's not okay, we want the white picket fence and the job. And as a man, if I'm going to be a father, a leader, I have to think beyond. And that's the beautiful thing about the prayer, because you have to detach.
Yeah.
And that's what makes you a strong man as well. You find in the manosphere now, they talk about being stoic, right? Being a person that's a minimalist. And this is already in the fabric of the deen of Islam. You know what I mean?
It's not new to us.
Yeah, it's not new.
Yeah.
It's not new. It's not new. So how was the prayer for you? I mean, when you were younger, you from Jersey, Patterson.
Yeah, I'm from Patterson. SubhanAllah. I think one ayah that struck me was, SubhanAllah, it's about discipline. Yeah. But Allah summarized it with regards to Quran. He said, "Inna as-salata kanat 'ala al-mu'minina kitaban mawquta." So when you salah for the believers is a prescribed book, right? Meaning, okay, I got to do this right now. Okay, then when the salah time comes, that's it. It's like a timestamp in your day. Yeah. Right? Everything is built around it. So what I understood from that is that, okay, I'm not going to be a believer until I can achieve this bare minimum amount of discipline. Do you get what I'm saying? It's as if Allah's saying, how there's a bare minimum of Iman? Yeah. Right? Yeah. And that's why Salah was connected to Iman. That's what I was about, yeah, exactly. Right? Exactly. The Prophet ﷺ, he's al-ahdu baynana wa baynahum salah, where, the covenant between us, and it's the salah is the bare minimum amount of discipline a believer has to have. Yeah, and it conditions you, man, because you have to stop 5 times a day, and then it makes you responsible, right? So if you're a born Muslim and you come a certain age, it's time for you to, parents, we don't realize that sometimes, our 15, 16-year-old, no, it's okay, you are on your own now. You have to get up and pray. You're going to answer in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Yeah. You're going to answer to him if you don't make those prayers, you know what I mean? So that's what's beautiful, is that time that you have to stop and allocate, for prayer. And if you don't, in the beginning, you may have to, at least you hold yourself accountable to a certain degree, because you see that ultimate reward, you know what I mean? SubhanAllah. If you remind me, actually, the verse, there's another verse, which is beautiful, which says, وَأْمُرْ أَهْلَكَ بِالصَّلَاةِ وَاصْطَبِرْ عَلَيْهَا. It says, order your family to pray and have perseverance over it.
You know, he didn't say wasbir alayha. He added more letters. It says ziyadatul mabna tadul ala ziyadatul ma'na. When you add more letters in the Arabic verb makeup, the morphology, you add more letters, it has more of a meaning to it, more eloquent meaning. So wasbir means patience over a long period of time. So it's like when you mention the prayer, you have to stop and think to yourself, I have to do this for the rest of my
That's the thought. Yeah.
the rest of my, I've never done this before,
Yeah.
for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
But then, you know, it was that reward that kept you going. It's like, man, I know Allah wants this. I know Allah really wants this. But for that to transition over to the physical sports, right? Athletics. I mean, all of us here, you know, we have been in some form of athletics, of physical exertion, of pushing yourself to the limit. That requires some mental fortitude. You know what I mean? Some mental fortitude. I mean, I'll start with myself. I mean, I remember when as a youth, I've always been into sports. I've always been in anything that had a ball, I was down. Playing, you know, it was like tackle football in the street. You know what I'm saying? It was touch. We were like, you play touch for so long, you know, as sun goes down, it's like, oh man, come on, let's play tackle.
So,
You know, that's that
tough.
aggression.
That's tough.
Yeah, and it's normal. You know what
Tackle
I
on the asphalt, Sheikh. That's
mean? Tackle on the asphalt.
that's it's next level.
It'll make you grow up real fast.
Yeah, make it go up real fast, man. Real fast. So when I came back from Saudi Arabia, after studying, I came back and, I was overweight. You know, it was the basbousa and, you know, the sweets and the
Trust me, we know. The kebsa.
The kebsa, the basbousa, مع الكبسة مع المعسوب.
And the masoob.
Masoub, man. Oh, man, I had to have my Masoub. But came back, and then my friend told me something the way that I looked, and I just couldn't handle it. He was like, yo, you with the throat, man, you still, you need to lose something. So brought me in the gym, and then it just brought me back. Yeah. But then I realized, man, I got to be consistent with this. One of the hardest things for me was the diet, to be honest. But then, like you said, you have to reach, there's a goal that you have to have. You know what I mean? So you've been in jiu-jitsu for 15 years? Or MMA for 15 years?
Just like general, MMA for about 15 years. But Sheikh, you know what? Discipline is, it's a transferable thing.
Exactly.
Like you were probably disciplined in memorizing Quran, reading books and studying with the scholars. And then you came here and you realized that same discipline has to go to a more a needed aspect in life. So it was easy to kind of like switch in.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely.
You know, I feel like the hardest thing is when someone never experienced discipline, right? Never experienced that discipline on their own. And when I say discipline, it's not like, oh yeah, I went to school for 12 years of my life, you know. No, your mom woke you up and sent you there and you hated it, you know, and brought you back and you had to study because you know what you're gonna get if you don't.
Right.
So discipline, I think, is when a man just decides to, you know, like, you know, I'm gonna put in this work. I want to achieve this goal. Yeah. And I need to phase everything out that's gonna deter me from that.
Right. No, that's beautiful, man.
Yeah.
I mean, like you said, transferable. And I think that's what's important for parents to know. You know what I'm saying? And I mean, you can even start with your child getting their first job and them having to get up and go to work by themselves. I mean, I love seeing that in my son, you know, when he used to get up and, you know, pray Fajr, then go to work. So get in that process, like, you got to pray Fajr, then go to work. This is what we call responsible. I don't want to do it. Well, life isn't about what you want to do. You know, life doesn't care. You have to keep moving. Like you said, memorizing the Quran is huge, man. How many times do I tell like the young guys, you know, it's like, look, you realize you've memorized this whole book. I know there were days that you didn't want to do this. Yeah. Right? Yeah. But you did it and you accomplished it. Or even you haven't accomplished it, you've gotten halfway. You've gotten, you know,
much further,
Yeah, like even for a new Muslim, right? I mean, when they've memorized how to recite the letters, I'm like, you realize it's a huge accomplishment. If your non-Muslim family hears you reciting another language, we don't realize that, but that takes a level of discipline, man. So running, I need it. I mean,
we all need it.
See, that's
everyone needs it.
We all need it. I mean, you were talking earlier before we were talking with Tamam, mashallah, about you know when you because you're a running coach, and you were talking about how. I asked you the question of what are the things that people do wrong when running that amounts in injuries, long-term injuries, but they don't realize it. Right. And you mentioned, what was your answer?
Just too much, too fast, usually.
Too much, too fast.
Yeah,
Okay. So what's the medicine though? What's the formula?
The medicine is, of course, discipline and consistency over a long period of time, right? And you see that with running, it's a tangible thing that you can look at your phone a year ago and look at it now. If you consistently ran, that you can see this trending line of like, oh, I've gotten better. Oh, I'm healthier, et cetera, right? So for me, running has always been that tangible thing I can hold on to when I'm even lying to myself about, learning Arabic or whatever it is. I can always say, no, I'm capable of anything if I just do it consistently over a long period of time. And so, that for me is what's been the key. Like, discipline to me is the key that unlocks everything. Because everything can be broken down to small tasks, and everybody can do a small task, right? Yep. And you can do it repetitively over and over and over. And like one day you'll look back and you'll say, I memorized the whole Quran, subhanAllah. Never thought, there's been plenty of times you would think, oh, I'm never gonna be able to do that.
Right.
But you do.
SubhanAllah. How was it for you? Like, when was it for you, your first time? Because you told me you love football.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
How did that transfer over into long distance running and then to doing triathlons? Your first time when you started intentionally running, what was going through your mind?
So I grew up playing Texas football in the heart of North Texas. So I grew up in, I want to say, the hardest off season possible. We were there at 6 a.m. We were running, we were working out, and our coaches would always say, who are you when no one's looking, right? Because there were so many bodies, and they couldn't make sure everyone was doing the right form. Yep. But I always internalized that because I'm like, that I see everyone doing half reps in the gym. I see everyone not running as hard as they can. Yeah. I wasn't the most physical person, but I was like, I can do those things. I can do the things that the coaches want that now I can see are that are going to build you to be a better man just in general. They understand there's going to be cheaters, but there's going to be those kids that aren't cheating, right? Right. And those are the kids they're talking to, those kids that are going to take that. So I've always had that foundation of this hard work ethic, and there was no denying it. There was no getting around it. It was there. I was there every day. I had to do the work. People were watching. So I did it, and I think that just transitioned to me looking for something hard again. You get older, you get out of high school, you get out of college, then there's no hard physical task. You sign up for a 5K, a 10K, but there's not something that scares you a little bit inside. There you go. And so maybe about 4 years ago, I've made a decision to every year I'm gonna set a goal that sounds super crazy on January 1st, but by the time I do it, it's going to be amazing, right? I'm going to do something that I never thought I was going to do. Even if I don't reach that goal, I'm going to get so much closer than I would ever if I didn't even start. So every year I set a goal, something really physical, something really hard. So the last 3 years I've been chasing a sub 3 hour marathon, which is 6:50 average pace. I haven't got there yet, but for the last 3 years I've had the biggest growth in just my overall health, just because I'm chasing that dream.
Chasing the dream.
Chasing it.
MashaAllah, there's a friend of mine, Adnan, he has a book called Chasing 100. Yeah, MashaAllah. So when you're a triathlon, you have to prepare 6 months in advance, isn't it?
Yeah. It's a huge time commitment,
Huge time commitment, subhanAllah. So just getting up, and that's why really the mental fortitude, mentally you have to be there, right?
You have to be with it.
You have to be with it, subhanAllah. 100%. And that's why when I'm almost sure when we dealt with the youth, we've all dealt with the youth. Yeah. You hear them, but it's a beautiful thing because when you tell them it's time to get up and pray, and they're like, I don't want to pray, or it's time to get up and roll or some type of track. Exactly. There's a common statement: I don't feel like it.
I don't feel like it.
I don't feel like it. Is that something that contributes to discipline or is an antagonist to it? What are y'all's thoughts on that?
Well, I think discipline is overcoming the feeling that you don't want to do something. Right, yeah. Right? That's what discipline is, in essence, right? Because nobody wants to put their muscles, strain their muscles, or get tired or sweaty or distract yourself, from other things that might be funner or make you happier. I guess in life, right? Right. So I guess the statement should for me, I don't feel like it. So
there you go.
You don't feel like, so what? Yeah, that's it. You shouldn't feel like it.
Yeah.
Right. Actually, the more you don't feel like it, the more we accomplish. Yeah. The more we accomplish, because that means you're changing yourself. You're putting yourself. That's why the Prophet ﷺ, in a famous hadith, he said, "Huffat al-jannatu bil-makarih, wa huffat an-naru bil-shahawat." Beautiful. Right? Jannah is surrounded with hardship. Right? So if you look at Jannah, and it's actually an interesting hadith. Jibreel alayhi salam, you saw it was like almost, I think it was a hadith Qudusi when Jibreel alayhi salam, he saw Jannah. It was an amazing, and hadith Qudusi is when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala say it's a hadith that Allah said that's not part of the Quran, right? That our Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam informed us about. When Allah created Jannah, he told Jibreel, look at Jannah. So when he looked at it, he told Allah, he said, Ya Allah, no one would hear about it except that they would enter it and do anything to enter it. And then Allah surrounded it with hardships, makarih, right? And then he said, Ya Allah, I don't know if anyone can make it there with all the hardships. Why? And I think it's as if, hardship, the ability to overcome hardship is the pathway to Jannah.
That's it.
And it's a transferable thing.
Yes.
Right? It's transferable. Right?
Yeah.
So that's in my opinion. Allah ta'ala.
No,
that's
أحسب
what I
الناس
think.
أن يتركوا أن يقولوا آمنا وهم لا يفتنون. Did people think that they will be left without saying I believe in Allah, and they will not be tested? Right? And those tests are going to be things that you don't want to do. But that is what responsibility is. And that's why it's so important for a young man to go through this struggle.
Yeah.
I mean, the struggle is always going to be there, but when the struggle is there, what are the choices that you're making? If you're choosing the easy way out, you're not going to really understand what struggle is about, right? And then when you go through the struggle and you accomplish it, then you realize, okay, if I accomplish this, what more is there out there in life that I can accomplish?
Exactly.
And that's the beauty of the Muslim man, because the Muslim man is like, look, with Allah on my side, with Allah working, trusting in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and trusting in something beyond my own capabilities, not relying on myself, sky's the limit.
You know what I say to the youth out there, Sheikh, since you mentioned me working with the youth? I tell them just push through, discipline yourself through these hardships that you don't feel like going through, or you don't see the urgency of going through. The moment you accomplish one in your life, that's it. You're going to be addicted to it. You're like, man, and actually that's going to be the pride of your life.
Yeah.
You're like, I went through this, and you see a lot of people boast, man, I pushed through this until, even like the hafiz, the little the kids who memorize the Quran, like, man, I went through and this was the hardest time of my life. And even during this time, okay, you might have hated it when you're doing it, right? Maybe you didn't want to wake up, maybe you didn't want to push through, but when you accomplish it, your whole life, you're going to be like, yeah, that's the goal I accomplished despite the hardship. So I just, my advice to every young man and woman out there is just young men especially, to just push through it.
Yeah.
Push through it. It's hard. Don't give up. Just push through it. The moment you accomplish it, you're going to know why we're talking about discipline.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Like
exactly.
why we're telling you discipline. Because a lot of times they just don't know what they're doing it for.
What was hard for you? What thing in your life when you were younger that was hard for you to stay consistent on? And then you finally got on track. You finally, took that transferable discipline that you had in one thing and then let it carry over to that thing that you were struggling in.
Honestly, I always wanted to memorize the Quran, right? And that was a tough thing for me, right? And something I realized that it was tough because I was inconsistent. I didn't want to drop certain hangouts or this other commitment. I was invited here. I was doing this. I'm hanging out. I want to go and visit this. I'm traveling, right? I realized that.
You let the I don't want to do it get it.
I let that. No, I don't feel like doing it now. I feel like doing this right now.
I don't feel like it.
I don't feel like it until I'm like, you don't need to feel like it. You're going to feel Jannah or feel not, so you better get yourself together and focus, right?
Yeah, because back what Ariel was saying, because he started praying because Allah was the most important thing,
So I put myself to that, alhamdulillah. And then I remember my sheikh, when I traveled to Saudi, right? So the first day I was there, I literally landed, next day Fajr, I went and met the sheikh.
Wow, okay.
Next day Fajr, I heard, I had asked who's a good sheikh, sat with him, and I stuck to him for 3 years. And he knew about discipline. You have a teacher who has information to give, but then you have a mentor who disciplines you. And that's the difference, because a lot of people have information. But the sheikh told me, look, he told me one thing that changed my life. He knew the solution. The first thing he asked me was, okay, how's your journey been with the Quran? And I told him, I've been this, I've been inconsistent. He was like, okay, I want you here 4 days a week. Whether you memorize or not, you're going to come and sit here. He said, if you memorize, you come and you recite. If you don't memorize, you're going to come and sit next to me and listen to everyone who recited.
Ooh.
So I'd go like that. So after a few times, I'm like, man, I'm wasting my time. I'm just sitting there and I'm looking at the ones like surpassing me.
Yeah.
Right? I'm just sitting there. I'm like, man, what a bummer. Look, all these guys. Memorize it. You know? And it motivated. I'm like, I'm not wasting my time no more. I'm just gonna come. Yo, but those, he's like, you block it off. He's like, Quran, you gotta prioritize.
Yeah.
Right? And that was a discipline. That was where like the discipline was. But Sheikh, one thing I wanted to, why I started with the Sun Tzu statement? Clear instruction. I really want to talk about that. And you mentioned something about like your coach told you to do certain workouts and stuff like that, right, Ariel? Like you wouldn't cheat it. Clear instructions, right, is the first condition of achieving discipline. But it also has to come from a trusted source. If you don't trust who's instructing you, who's telling you, like who's setting the path for you, you're never going to be disciplined, right? Like how many people like, oh, you know what kind of diet you got to be on? You got to cut this out, cut that out. And you don't trust the person. And they're giving you instructions, but you don't trust their knowledge of it. Or you trust their knowledge, but they're not being clear. Yeah, you could do that. He's very knowledgeable, but he's not paying you mind. He's not giving you exactly what to do. Or he's not telling you, So you could never achieve discipline until you have someone you trust to guide you and someone who can clearly tell you how to get to the goal. Yeah. Every step of the way. Right? And that's my thing.
No, and that's beautiful, man, because when you're talking about that, we're looking at Allah.
Yes.
And the first Ramadan, man. How was your first Ramadan?
I remember my first drink of water, my first Ramadan.
Allah, that must have been good. Allahu Akbar.
It was, I look forward to those things. So like hard things I like. I'm usually the head first into those kind of things.
That's
so I was all on board. But I do remember my very first drink. I played football that day. I was dying of thirst.
You played football fast.
I played football that morning. And this is when Ramadan was in like August. This is a long time ago, right?
Man,
so this is a full day, full sun out all day long. The sweetest water I've ever drank in my life.
The water was even sweet.
It was sweet. It was sweet. It tastes different.
Yeah, but I wanted to touch on something earlier. So like the things that we in our brains tell ourselves are hard, eventually are not hard anymore, right? With consistency, with that discipline. So like it used to be really hard to make 2 prayers, hard to make 3 prayers, but then you have those shifts. You had that shift. You're sitting in this masajid and everyone's reciting and you're not. You had that shift in your mind to say like, oh, I'm going to do it. I have to now.
Yes.
And so, I mean, there's no answer to when that thing happens, but it just happens sometimes.
Yep.
And if there's people in the community that can kind of help, kids figure that out sooner, subhanAllah, would be amazing, I
don't want people there's a trap though. There's going to be some people that are watching other programs. I mean, they watch, certain people, whether it's your Eric Thomas or your David Goggins, wherever the case may be, or mashallah, different people. They get motivated. And they reach a point of they're motivated in being disciplined. Like it's interesting. I like how this person looks, or I like their schedule. Man, that's great. I'm gonna do it. It's kind of like the New Year's resolution that people have, right? The first month is great, but then the 6th month, where are we, right?
Yeah.
So what do y'all think about that? Because that to me is like a trap. When you're motivated to being disciplined, what would you tell someone that you see?
So my theme for all of 2024 is to do the work in the dark. And so I'm only proving to myself that I'm chasing a marathon time, right? And what will be the result is all the work I put in. So that on that day, there's no lying to myself. There's no saying if I missed a workout or I missed a run or I wasn't doing something consistently, it's going to show on that day. And I'm the only person to blame. Nice. So my whole theme of this year is just do the work in the dark. You can't lie. You can't lie to yourself. The work is going to do the job for you at the end of the day. No one needs to see the work.
Beautiful, man.
Because you're only going to prove to yourself at the end of it that you did it or didn't. And if you know you didn't, you're gonna feel, sad, regret, all those feelings, and so that's what you don't want.
You know what that reminds me of?
Yeah. What? I'll tell you what it reminds me of.
What?
No, you tell me.
Tahajjud.
Allah.
Tahajjud.
SubhanAllah, yeah.
Tahajjud.
Yes.
What do you say? أفشوا السلام وأطعموا الطعام وصلوا بالليل والناس نيام تدخل الجنة بسلام. Spread the salams, feed the poor people, pray in the night when everyone's sleeping. You'll enter Jannah peacefully. Subhanallah. That's beautiful, man. Like, praying, and then, subhanAllah, Allah even gives the incentive of when you pray in the last third of the night, tahajjud. Is there anyone asking that I can forgive them, that I can answer their dua? Subhanallah, and that's beautiful.
Allahu Akbar.
Yeah, you were going to mention something.
I was going to mention Umar radiallahu anhu's statement, right? He said, حاسبوا أنفسكم قبل أن تحاسبوا وزنوا أعمالكم قبل أن توزنوا. Right? Which means, judge yourself before you get judged. And weigh your own actions before they get weighed for you. Right? So I think it's a profound, statement. Wallahu a'lam. Like, it's something that if you just put in front of your eyes, you can always be like, okay, I don't need to wait for anyone to judge me. Let me judge myself.
Exactly.
Like deep down, بَلِ الْإِنسَانُ عَلَى نَفْسِهِ بَصِيرًا. Like we know ourselves better than anybody.
Right.
Like you're slacking. You know you could do more. Just be brutally honest with yourself.
That's it, man.
Right? And judgmentalism too. We talk a lot about judgmentalism, but I think sometimes it has a negative effect if it's applied to oneself. Like you have to judge yourself.
Right.
Right? You got to be harsh on yourself.
Yeah, that's what happens.
And kind to others. And that's the opposite of like being egotistical, right?
Right.
Or just, judging others and forgetting ourselves.
And it's beautiful, man. Like you said, do it in the dark when no one's there, when no one's watching. I think it was, I forgot which boxer was saying the real champions are when they're practicing alone.
Yeah.
I think it was Usain Bolt. What did he say? He said, I trained something like 9 months for 9 seconds. That's beautiful, man.
Wow.
Like, because you only, the race is only, 9 plus seconds.
9 plus seconds.
But you trained how long for that moment? That takes discipline. It takes really looking at the light at the end of the tunnel and really desiring it. And that's why Jannah, subhanAllah, as you mentioned, the reward for the believer, that's what's going to keep them going. تَتَجَافَى جُنُوبُهُمْ عَنِ الْمَضَاجِعِ يَدْعُونَ رَبَّهُمْ خَوْفًا وَطَمَعًا. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about those believers. He says their sides are distant from their places that they lie, where they lay their head. تَتَجَافَى جُنُوبُهُمْ عَنِ الْمَضَاجِعِ. Malja is like your place of rest. And what are they doing? يَدْعُونَ رَبَّهُمْ خَوْفًا وَطَمَعًا. They're calling on him with full fear of him and full hope in him. SubhanAllah, like what you're saying, it's just a matter of just do it. Don't think too much about it. Those that are motivated to be disciplined, like they think too much, analysis paralysis. There's going to be times in your life especially for a man, that's where I want to transition over to is for the man, you're just going to have to get up and do it, which leads to risk because that analysis paralysis sometimes, it makes you fearful, it makes you scared, and it kind of makes you a wimp, bro. I'm going to keep it 100. It makes you really a wimp. Like, it makes you weak. When you think too much about it, to where at the end of the day, a year down the line, you did absolutely nothing.
Yeah.
And then what will happen is Shaitan will play with you, and you'll give excuses.
Right.
And that'll be your pattern. Giving excuses for being fearful and weak. And as a man, as a protector of society, starting with yourself.
With yourself.
Because the jihad, that's the whole concept of jihad nafs.
Exactly.
Like fighting yourself, fighting your desires. Yeah. It's not something, it's going to be here one day, you're going to mess up this day. But it's a process, and it takes discipline.
SubhanAllah. Ariel, I don't know about you, man. This session's been inspiring to me, man. You guys are, mashallah, amazing. Everything you shared. It's nice when men sit down and kick it the men way. Yeah. Right? Like, I want to do that. No, we're go-getters.
Yeah.
Right.
We get up, we want to do something, we just do it, and it's beautiful. And Sheikh, by the way, I think we should elaborate on surrounding yourself with people who are disciplined.
Oh, no doubt about it, man.
Yeah, that's like something serious because like when everyone around you is like loose and have no goals and no discipline.
Yeah. I mean, you are who you hang around with, right? Like
exactly.
It's your parents told you that as a kid and you ignored it. But you grow up and you're like, subhanAllah, they knew this whole time.
Yeah, man, that's the other thing, man. You know, it's beautiful way the Prophet said, "Al-mar'u ala dini khalili, falyanzur ahadukum man yukhalil." He said the person is on the religion or way of his friends, so you should look at who you befriend. You know, it's deep because, you know, as a young man, there's that pressure. High school, college, Muslims too. You know, you're going in an environment out to the wolves, man. It's, you know, the hadith of the Prophet, what did he tell Ali? I think it's in Tirmidhi. He said, Ya Ali, لا تتبع النظرة النظرة فإن لك الأولى وعليك الثانية.
Wow.
He said, oh Ali, do not follow up looking with another look, you know, at the opposite gender, female. He said, for you is the first, but upon you is the second. You're held accountable if you look a second time. So if you're around friends, what's the term they use now? Riz, like to riz them up. They call it getting from charisma, like riz.
Yeah,
you know,
riz.
did you riz her? You know, it's like you are. How many females are you talking to? How many phone numbers do you have? How many DMs did you slide in? One that's trying to be a disciplined, honorable man doesn't do this stuff, right? Because he's around people that are like, bro, how did you even have time to DM them? Like, what goals are you trying to accomplish? What have you looked for a job? Have you started an endeavor online? You can make a lot of money. There's things you can do.
Yeah.
Have you read any Quran? Like, what kinds of people are you around?
Associating with.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's deep. That's deep, man.
And that's perhaps what, you know, the benefit of like salah in jama'ah.
Yeah.
Why the Prophet ﷺ always encouraged salah. Because like, just think of it this way. If you get up, you go to the masjid, and you line up in a certain way and you do specific movements in a specific order with people who are disciplined enough to come on time to pray in this jama'ah. So it's like, it's not only is it a discipline for you to pray, but what's encouraged in the Sharia is 5 meetups with disciplined people.
Deep.
Right? Like you're supposed to be around disciplined people 5 times a day as well. So that's like perhaps part of the subhanAllah.
That's interesting, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's deep,
I
man.
like that.
Yeah, punctuality, cleanliness, you know, order.
SubhanAllah.
You know what I'm saying? Obedience, following the leader, the imam.
Oh yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And then socially, there's certain adab even in the masjid, right? It's deep. And that's why, you know, you think about it, you find the older men constantly in the masjid because they've been through life and they like you mentioned earlier.
They got the keys.
They got the keys, man.
Keys.
And that's why, subhanAllah, that term, you know, we'll talk about it soon, inshallah, rites of passage.
Inshallah.
You know, being around those people that'll teach you what a man is like. And from that definitely is discipline, man.
Inshallah.
Alhamdulillah. Jazakallah khair. Alhamdulillah. May Allah bless you, brothers, man. Mashallah. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to bless the triathlete with healthy joints, inshallah. I got to get out there and run with you, man.
Inshallah.
And that's not going to be, some days not a day of the week, man. You know what I'm saying? You're going to get out there, man.
You just got to do it, you know?
That's it. Just do it, man. Just do it, man. I guess I got to start in my garage in the dark. You know what I'm saying?
Start in the dark.
I have to too, you know. I can barely run a couple miles, but you know, with discipline, inshallah.
With discipline, you can do
maybe
anything.
by next year, I'll be something else.
You can.
You know, because now after knowing all this about you, I trust your coaching. You know,
No, definitely.
inshallah, you'll tell me. You'll tell me how to get there, inshallah. You could join us in the MMA gym as well.
Let's do it. You know, honestly, this is a thing that I've been pushing off for like 2 or 3 years now.
Yeah.
It makes me uncomfortable to walk in there, but I want to one day.
Inshallah.
And so, inshallah, maybe you'll be the
I'll be there
one
too.
to help me do that.
Anytime,
so,
inshallah,
I've
brother.
been meaning to do that.
Always
It's been one of my
brothers,
bucket list items. So,
Inshallah.
Alhamdulillah.
Inshallah.
Mashallah. It's
It was
beautiful.
a pleasure.
And that's the beauty of brothers meeting together and just in the man cave, you know, vibing, alhamdulillah, talking about things that men go through and discussing it from an Islamic perspective. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless all of you for tuning in, and may Allah bless you to be the best Muslim men that you can be. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.